Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating story of transformation. It's about how a bank in Nepal, facing all the digital pressures of the modern world, decided to completely rebuild its tech foundation to, well, basically safeguard its own future.
I mean, just think about it for a second. What if your bank just went offline? You're trying to buy coffee, your card's declined, your banking app, it won't even open, the ATM, totally dead. And this isn't some quick glitch. The entire bank is down. For how long? Nobody knows. That's not just an inconvenience, right? That's a full-blown crisis. And it is exactly the kind of nightmare scenario that keeps banking execs staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m.
So, for this particular bank in Nepal, this wasn't just some hypothetical fear. They were staring down a very real digital dilemma. They were kind of stuck, caught between their aging, clunky infrastructure and the nonstop demands of a super fast-moving and, frankly, threat-filled digital world. So on one side, you've got the old way of doing things. That's the system they were currently running on. And on the other side, well, we're going to get to that. But first, let's take a closer look at the problems they were so desperately trying to get away from. And these weren't just, separate little issues. It was more like a chain reaction. Updates were manual and painfully slow, which created all these security holes. Their disaster recovery process took forever, which meant any kind of failure could be absolutely catastrophic. And all the while, you've got these increasingly sophisticated security threats and complex government regulations just piling on the pressure. The bank was basically fighting a war on 4 different, very connected fronts. So what do? You don't just patch the holes, right? You've got to design a whole new, modern blueprint right from the ground up. And this wasn't just about a simple upgrade. This was about a fundamental shift in their entire way of operating. Now, the absolute core of this new blueprint was a technology called Red Hat OpenShift Virtualization. It's a platform that's built to run both your old legacy applications and your brand new ones, all side by side. The best way to think about it is like this. Their old system was like a sprawling neighborhood of separate old houses. Each one needed its own maintenance, its own security, its own plumbing. The new system, it's like a brand new high-tech apartment building. It can house all the tenants, old and new, but they're all living under one roof with centralized security, modern plumbing, and super efficient management. It's just incredibly efficient. Of course, a modern building like that needs modern security. So they installed a system called Advanced Cluster Security, or ACS. You can think of it as a digital security guard for the whole building, constantly monitoring everything to spot and neutralize threats before they can ever cause any real damage. And what about all those complicated banking rules and regulations? Well, for that, they used a specialized tool called the Compliance Operator. This thing acts like an automated building inspector. It's constantly checking to make sure every single thing is up to code and aligned with global standards. And it does it all without needing a whole team of people to manually check spreadsheets. And finally, you have to be able to see what's going on everywhere, all at once. So using tools like Grafana, they essentially built a central control room. This gave them total visibility, allowing them to monitor the health and performance of the entire system right from a single dashboard. Okay, so with all the digital tools in place, the next step was to build the physical and digital architecture. A structure so resilient, you could pretty much call it an unbreakable vault. Their strategy for resilience was all about redundancy. They didn't just have one data center, they had 3. First, you have the primary data center. That's the main bank, where all the daily operations happen. Second, they built a fully equipped disaster recovery site. Think of it as a backup bunker, ready to take over in an instant if the main site goes down. And third, and this part is really clever, they added a minimal site, kind of like a safety deposit box, that holds just enough to meet compliance rules, making sure they are always covered. No, building a resilient structure is one thing. But operating it efficiently, that's a whole other ballgame. The real key, the secret sauce, wasn't hiring more people. It was empowering automation to become the master architect of the entire system. This quote from Carly Fiorina really nails why they focused so heavily on automation. It wasn't just about being faster. It was about creating a system that was smarter, way more consistent, and could actually give them real insights into its own operations. And the difference was it was night and day. Where installing a new system used to be slow and full of human error, it was now fast and perfectly consistent. Those risky manual app deployments, they were replaced by this smooth automated pipeline. This wasn't just a small improvement, it was a total game changer for how fast they could innovate and respond to the market. They started right at the bottom, at the foundation.
The entire bedrock of their new platform, all three of those sites we talked about, was installed and configured automatically using a tool called Ansible. This makes sure that every part of the system is built perfectly in exactly the same way every single time, no exceptions. And for actually getting new banking services to their customers, they built what is basically a software assembly line. Using tools like Tekton and Argo CD, the whole process of building, testing, and releasing new applications is now a smooth, automated pipeline that delivers value to customers faster and way more reliably than they ever could before.
So, after all this work, designing a new blueprint, building this digital vault, and hiring automation as the architect, what was the result? What was the big payoff for all this effort? This number pretty much says it all. The goal in any modern infrastructure is to get as close to 100% uptime as you possibly can. By building this incredibly robust, resilient system, the bank could now realistically aim for a level of reliability that protects not only its operations, but also its customers' trust. But the payoff went way beyond just uptime. The benefits to the business were truly transformative. They got genuinely enhanced security against modern threats. They could now easily align with global standards. They had truly robust disaster recovery. And maybe most importantly, they could now deliver new services to their customers at a speed they could only have dreamed of before. And that brings us to the final thought, really. This bank in Nepal secured its future because it asked a really tough question and then took bold action. So the question for everyone else is, in a world where digital threats and disruptions are just a constant, is the foundation you're standing on, is it truly built to last?